Today, I will be addressing one of the most pressing challenges in our nation's journey toward achieving net zero emissions by 2070. Hello and welcome once again. This is your host, Harshit Simha, bringing you an insightful discussion on Sustainable Development Goal 7, a cornerstone of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, targeting universal access to affordable, reliable, sustainable, and modern energy. This objective is not an isolated endeavor but a fundamental enabler, intricately linked to poverty reduction, health improvements, educational advancement, and economic growth. The global assessment of its progress reveals a landscape of significant achievement juxtaposed with persistent challenges. Globally, concerted efforts have yielded substantial gains in expanding access to electricity and clean cooking solutions. Technological innovations, particularly in renewable energy, have dramatically reduced costs, making solar and wind power increasingly competitive with conventional fossil fuels. This transition is paramount for decarbonizing the global energy system and mitigating climate change. However, the assessment underscores a deeply uneven progress. Geopolitical instability, supply chain disruptions, and concentrated investments have created disparities, leaving millions in developing and least developed countries without basic energy services. The persistent reliance on traditional biomass for cooking remains a severe health and environmental hazard, disproportionately affecting women and children. The pathway to achieving SDG 7 by 2030 demands an unprecedented acceleration of effort. This necessitates robust political commitment, a significant scale-up in public and private financing, and the strategic deployment of technology to overcome the last-mile connectivity challenge. Furthermore, policies must be designed to ensure that the transition to clean energy is just and equitable, leaving no one behind. Ultimately, the success of SDG 7 is a prerequisite for the attainment of nearly all other sustainable development goals, solidifying its role as a cornerstone of our collective sustainable future. Slide 2. Understanding SDG 7, Core Concepts. Sustainable Development Goal 7, SDG 7, extends beyond the simplistic notion of electrification to embody a multifaceted framework for a just and sustainable energy transition. Its core concepts are four interdependent pillars that collectively define its comprehensive ambition. The first pillar, universal energy access, establishes the foundational principle of equity. It mandates that every global citizen must have access to reliable electricity and modern clean cooking solutions. This is not merely a technical objective but a fundamental human right, crucial for eradicating poverty, improving health outcomes by replacing harmful traditional biomass, and enabling educational and economic opportunities. The second and third pillars, renewable energy and energy efficiency, represent the twin engines of systemic decarbonization. Increasing the share of renewables, such as solar, wind, and geothermal, in the global energy mix is essential for mitigating climate change. Concurrently, doubling the global rate of improvement in energy efficiency is a strategic imperative for reducing energy intensity across industrial, residential, and transportation sectors. This dual approach ensures that energy demand is met not by producing more, but by producing and consuming smarter, thereby enhancing energy security and sustainability. Finally, the pillar of international cooperation acknowledges that this transformation cannot be achieved in isolation. It calls for enhanced global collaboration to facilitate the flow of investment, technology, and knowledge, particularly to developing nations. This solidarity is critical for bridging the energy access gap and ensuring an equitable transition where all nations can participate in and benefit from the clean energy revolution. Together, these concepts form a holistic and integrated roadmap for a sustainable energy future for all. Slide 3. Why SDG 7 matters. Sustainable Development Goal 7, SDG 7, which advocates for access to affordable, reliable, sustainable, and modern energy, is far more than a technical or environmental target. It is a foundational enabler of global development and human well-being. Its significance permeates environmental, economic, social, and security dimensions, making it a prerequisite for achieving the broader 2030 agenda. Environmental sustainability is directly advanced through the transition to renewable energy, which reduces carbon emissions and mitigates climate change, while diminishing pollution enhances ecosystem and public health. Economically, SDG 7 drives job creation in green technologies and enables industrial growth by providing stable and cost-effective power, essential for productivity and innovation. Socially, access to clean energy transforms lives. It improves health by replacing hazardous traditional fuels, extends educational opportunities through reliable lighting and digital tools, and promotes gender equality by reducing the time burden of fuel collection on women and girls. Moreover, energy security and resilience are bolstered through diversified and decentralized renewable sources, reducing dependency on volatile fossil fuel markets and enhancing adaptability in crises. Without progress in SDG 7, efforts to eradicate poverty, improve health and education, and foster sustainable industries remain fundamentally constrained. Energy access breaks cycles of deprivation, enabling communities to participate in modern economic and social systems. Thus, SDG 7 acts as a multiplier, intersecting with and accelerating nearly all other sustainable development goals. Slide 4. The global energy landscape. The contemporary global energy landscape presents a stark dichotomy of profound challenge and transformative opportunity. Despite significant advancements, alarming disparities persist. Approximately 759 million people remain without electricity, predominantly across sub-Saharan Africa and developing Asia, while a staggering 2.6 billion individuals rely on polluting fuels for cooking, with devastating consequences for health, gender equality, and environmental sustainability. This energy poverty entrenches cycles of deprivation, limiting access to education, modern healthcare, and economic participation. Concurrently, the energy sector stands as the dominant contributor to the climate crisis, responsible for 37% of global greenhouse gas emissions. This underscores the non-negotiable imperative to decarbonize energy systems worldwide. While progress is evident, with renewables now accounting for a commendable 19% of global final energy consumption, this share must undergo a radical and rapid expansion to meet climate targets and ensure a sustainable future. This landscape defines a dual mandate: the urgent moral obligation to achieve universal access to modern energy services and the existential necessity to transition to a clean energy paradigm. These objectives are not mutually exclusive but are intrinsically linked. The pathway forward demands unprecedented international cooperation, substantial public and private investment, and the strategic deployment of innovative technologies and policies. Addressing this complex landscape is fundamental to achieving not only SDG 7 but the entire 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. Slide 5. Global Implementation Challenges. The transition to affordable, reliable, sustainable, and modern energy for all is fraught with systemic implementation challenges that threaten to derail progress toward SDG 7. The most formidable barrier is a yawning financing gap. An annual investment of approximately $1.3 trillion is required, yet current flows amount to only half that figure. This shortfall is acutely felt in developing regions, where higher perceived risks and capital costs deter essential private investment. Compounding this financial hurdle are persistent technical barriers, including insufficient and aging grid infrastructure that lacks the capacity to integrate variable renewable sources at scale. This is exacerbated by critical capacity limitations, a widespread shortage of technical skills, robust institutional frameworks, and localized expertise needed to plan, deploy, and maintain modern energy systems. Furthermore, policy inconsistency and unpredictability pose a significant threat. Shifting regulatory environments and a lack of long-term, stable energy policies create uncertainty, deterring the very investors and developers crucial to closing the implementation gap. These challenges are deeply interconnected. Policy instability amplifies financial risk, which in turn stifles the investments needed to build technical and human capacity. Overcoming these hurdles demands an unprecedented level of coordinated multilateral action, innovative de-risking financial instruments, and steadfast political commitment to create an enabling environment for a sustainable energy future. Slide 6. Regional disparities in energy access. The pursuit of universal energy access is profoundly marred by stark and persistent regional disparities, revealing a deep global inequity. While regions such as Europe, North America, and East Asia enjoy near saturation access to electricity and clean cooking, Sub-Saharan Africa remains the epicenter of energy poverty. Here, a majority of the global population without electricity resides, and access to clean cooking solutions is exceptionally low. Similar, though less acute, challenges persist in parts of South Asia and developing Asia, despite notable progress in countries like India on electrification. These disparities are not incidental but are symptomatic of underlying economic inequalities, geographic fragmentation, and varying levels of policy prioritization and investment. Landlocked and fragile states face compounded challenges, including higher costs for infrastructure deployment and weaker institutional capacity. The clean cooking gap, in particular, lags significantly behind electricity access across all developing regions, perpetuating severe health and gender burdens primarily on women and children. Bridging this divide requires a tailored, context-specific approach that acknowledges the unique barriers within each region. Sub-Saharan Africa's significant distributed renewable potential demands off-grid and mini-grid solutions, while South Asia requires intensified focus on clean cooking technologies and fuel switching. Addressing these disparities is not merely a technical endeavor but a fundamental requirement for global equity, social justice, and sustainable development. Without targeted interventions, the risk of leaving entire regions behind in the energy transition remains unacceptably high. Slide 7. Progress in India's energy access. India has emerged as a global leader in the accelerated expansion of energy access, demonstrating a formidable commitment to achieving SDG 7 through large-scale, targeted government initiatives. The nation has made monumental strides in closing its energy access gap, serving as a potent model for other developing economies. The Pradhan Mantri Sahaj Bijli Har Ghar Yojana (Saubhagya) scheme successfully achieved near universal household electrification, connecting over 26 million previously underserved homes. In parallel, the Pradhan Mantri Ujjwala Yojana addressed the critical clean cooking deficit by providing over 80 million LPG connections to women from low-income households, drastically reducing reliance on biomass and its associated health hazards. Concurrently, India has engineered a remarkable renewable energy transition. The country's solar capacity has exploded from a mere 2.6 gigawatts in 2014 to over 40 gigawatts, becoming one of the most competitive and lowest-cost solar markets globally. This expansion is complemented by world-leading energy efficiency programs. The Unnat Jyoti by Affordable LEDs for All (Ujala) scheme distributed 367 million LED bulbs, resulting in annual energy savings of 47 billion kilowatt-hours and significantly reducing peak demand. This multi-pronged approach, integrating grid electrification, clean fuel access, renewable capacity addition, and demand-side efficiency, highlights a replicable framework for comprehensive energy development. India's progress underscores the critical role of political will, policy design, and scale in transforming a nation's energy landscape and advancing sustainable development objectives. Slide 8. Persistent challenges in India. India's remarkable achievements in expanding energy access are now confronted by the more complex challenges of quality, reliability, and sustained affordability. Despite near universal connection rates, the quality of electricity access remains a critical concern. Many regions, particularly rural areas, endure frequent outages and voltage fluctuations, with businesses facing an average of 17 interruptions monthly. This unreliable supply severely hampers productivity and economic growth, underscoring that a connection alone does not equate to meaningful access. The clean cooking transition faces a similar implementation gap. While the Ujjwala scheme successfully distributed over 80 million LPG connections, sustained usage is hindered by fuel affordability and deep-seated cultural preferences. An estimated 60% of rural households continue to use biomass for some cooking needs, perpetuating a severe public health crisis from indoor air pollution that causes approximately 600,000 premature deaths annually, disproportionately affecting women and children. Underpinning these service delivery issues are profound financial constraints. State-owned distribution companies, DISCOMs, remain trapped in a cycle of debt, with aggregate financial losses exceeding $15 billion, which cripples their ability to invest in grid modernization and maintenance. Furthermore, despite falling technology costs, the high upfront capital required for distributed renewable systems remains prohibitive for low-income communities without innovative financing models. Addressing these persistent challenges requires a strategic shift from quantitative expansion to qualitative service delivery and financial sustainability. Slide 9. Status of energy dependency. India's dual challenges. India's energy landscape is defined by a critical dependency on coal, presenting a complex dual challenge, meeting the rapidly growing energy demands of its 1.4 billion people while simultaneously navigating a transition to cleaner sources. As one of the world's fastest-growing economies, India's energy consumption is projected to double by 2040, necessitating massive expansion in generation capacity. India aims to reach 500 gigawatts of non-fossil fuel-based electricity capacity by 2030 as part of its Paris Agreement commitments made at COP26. India's total power generation in FY 2024, which is the most recent complete financial year ending March 31, 2024, was 441.97 gigawatts in installed capacity and is projected to reach 1,824 billion units, BU, by the end of FY 2025. The total installed power capacity in India was 441.97 gigawatts as of March 31, 2024, with renewable energy, RE, accounting for a significant portion of that, reaching 190.57 gigawatts by the end of FY 2024. Despite significant progress in renewable energy, coal continues to dominate the energy mix, accounting for approximately 70% of electricity generation. This reliance underscores a fundamental tension between immediate development needs and long-term climate commitments. Coal remains perceived as a readily available, baseload power source essential for grid stability and industrial growth. However, this dependency creates substantial vulnerabilities, including import burdens, environmental degradation, and alignment challenges with India's net zero ambitions. The transition is further complicated by the intermittency of renewables, grid integration limitations, and the financial strain on distribution companies. The pathway forward requires a strategic, multifaceted approach, accelerating renewable deployment complemented by grid modernization and energy storage solutions, exploring cleaner coal technologies, and potentially leveraging natural gas as a transitional fuel. India's energy dependency dilemma is not unique but is magnified by its scale, making its management critical for both national energy security and global climate efforts. Success hinges on balancing affordable energy access with sustainable diversification, supported by international finance and technology transfer. Slide 10. India's renewable energy ambition. India has positioned itself as a global leader in the renewable energy transition through a suite of ambitious, well-defined national commitments. Central to this vision are the twin goals of achieving 500 gigawatts of non-fossil fuel capacity by 2030 and reaching net zero emissions by 2070. These targets represent one of the world's most significant national efforts to decouple economic growth from carbon emissions, reflecting a profound strategic shift in the country's energy policy. This ambition is underpinned by a robust and supportive policy framework. Key initiatives include production-linked incentive (PLI) schemes to boost domestic manufacturing of solar PV modules and create a self-reliant renewable supply chain, thereby reducing import dependency. Further policy support is evident through tax benefits, mandatory, must-run status for renewable power plants ensuring grid priority, and the development of dedicated green energy corridors to facilitate the integration of variable renewable energy into the national grid. Financially, the scale of commitment is substantial. With over $42 billion invested in renewables since 2014, the pathway to 2030 requires an estimated $20 billion in annual investments. This capital is directed towards scaling utility-scale solar and wind parks, fostering green hydrogen innovation, and advancing energy storage technologies. India's renewable ambition is not merely an environmental imperative but a comprehensive economic strategy aimed at enhancing energy security, fostering industrial growth, and establishing the nation as a competitive force in the global clean energy market. Slide 11. Technical and policy barriers in India. India's ambitious renewable energy transition is confronted by a multifaceted array of technical and policy barriers that threaten to impede its pace and scale. Grid integration presents a foremost technical challenge, characterized by inadequate transmission infrastructure to channel power from renewable-rich regions to demand centers, technical limitations in managing the intermittency of solar and wind generation, and critically insufficient energy storage capacity to ensure grid stability. These issues are compounded by an aging distribution network plagued by high technical and commercial losses, undermining the financial and operational efficacy of the entire power system. Concurrently, regulatory hurdles create significant investor uncertainty and project delays. Complex and protracted land acquisition processes, inconsistent policies across different states, and subsidized tariff structures that distort market signals collectively stifle investment. The recurring risk of power purchase agreement (PPA) renegotiation further erodes developer confidence, jeopardizing the financial viability of essential projects. Furthermore, technical capacity gaps constrain domestic execution. A shortage of skilled professionals for renewable project deployment, limited domestic manufacturing capabilities despite production-linked incentives, and insufficient investment in research and development for context-appropriate technologies hinder localization and innovation. Weak institutional capacity for robust energy data collection and analysis also impedes evidence-based policy formulation and monitoring. Addressing these interconnected barriers demands coherent policy alignment, strategic infrastructure investment, and focused human capital development to ensure India's energy ambitions are both achievable and sustainable. Slide 12. Innovations driving India's energy transition. India's energy transition is being accelerated by a suite of groundbreaking innovations that are effectively addressing the dual challenges of accessibility and sustainability. Pay-as-you-go, PAYG, solar models, leveraging mobile-enabled payment platforms, are revolutionizing energy access by allowing low-income households to purchase solar power in small, affordable increments. Companies like Simpa Networks have successfully deployed this model, reaching over 60,000 households in Uttar Pradesh alone, demonstrating a scalable solution for last-mile connectivity. Concurrently, community microgrids are empowering remote and grid-isolated regions with decentralized, reliable power. With over 10,000 operational systems serving approximately 5 million people, these microgrids provide not only electricity but also foster local economic resilience and energy independence. This innovation is critical for bridging the gap where central grid extension remains economically unviable. Technological advancements in smart grids are optimizing the entire distribution network. Pilot projects across 14 Indian cities have integrated advanced monitoring and control systems, resulting in a demonstrable 15% reduction in technical losses and significantly improved supply reliability. Furthermore, the strategic push for battery storage solutions is essential for managing renewable intermittency. Supported by the National Energy Storage Mission, which targets 4 gigawatts of grid-connected capacity by 2025, declining battery costs are enabling greater solar integration and stabilizing microgrid operations. These innovations collectively represent a transformative approach, blending technology, finance, and policy to build a resilient and inclusive energy future. Slide 13. The Urban-Rural Energy Divide. The global energy landscape is starkly divided along urban-rural lines, representing one of the most persistent forms of inequality in the pursuit of Sustainable Development Goal 7. While urban areas boast a 97% electricity access rate, benefiting from economies of scale, prioritized infrastructure investment, and concentrated demand, rural regions languish at just 79% access. This 18 percentage point gap underscores a profound disparity in development priorities and resource allocation. The challenges in rural areas are multifaceted. Geographic isolation and low population density dramatically increase per capita connection costs, making conventional grid extension economically unviable. Limited household income further constrains the ability to pay for modern energy services, perpetuating reliance on traditional biomass. This is acutely evident in the clean cooking sector, where only 66% of rural populations have access, compared to near universal urban coverage. The continued dependence on solid fuels results in severe health impacts from indoor air pollution, disproportionately affecting women and children, while also contributing to environmental degradation through unsustainable biomass harvesting. Bridging this divide requires a fundamental shift in approach. Rather than relying solely on centralized grid extension, solutions must embrace decentralized systems tailored to rural contexts. Renewable-based mini-grids, solar home systems, and innovative financing models like pay-as-you-go solar have demonstrated significant potential to overcome the economic and geographical barriers that conventional infrastructure cannot. Addressing the urban-rural energy divide is not merely a technical challenge but a moral imperative for equitable development, requiring targeted policies, dedicated financing, and context-specific technologies to ensure no community is left in the dark. Slide 14. Energy-Climate Nexus. The inextricable link between energy systems and climate change represents the defining challenge of our era, positioning the energy transition as the cornerstone of global climate mitigation efforts. Accounting for approximately two-thirds of global greenhouse gas emissions, the energy sector stands as the primary driver of climate change, making its transformation absolutely essential for achieving the objectives of the Paris Agreement. This establishes a dual imperative. Nations, particularly developing economies, must simultaneously expand energy access to support development and economic growth while radically decarbonizing their energy systems to avert climate catastrophe. This complex balancing act demands an unprecedented scaling of renewable energy deployment, enhanced energy efficiency, and the development of innovative technologies such as green hydrogen and advanced energy storage. However, the pathway is fraught with equity considerations. A just transition is paramount, ensuring that the shift to clean energy does not disproportionately impact vulnerable communities or workers in traditional fossil fuel industries. It requires substantial international financial support, technology transfer, and capacity building to enable developing nations to leapfrog carbon-intensive development stages. Furthermore, building climate resilience into energy infrastructure has become critically urgent. Increasingly frequent and intense extreme weather events, from heat waves to cyclones, threaten energy security by disrupting generation and damaging transmission networks. Therefore, modern energy systems must be designed not only to mitigate climate change through reduced emissions but also to adapt to its escalating impacts, ensuring reliable and secure power in a warming world. The successful navigation of the energy-climate nexus is fundamental to securing a sustainable and equitable future for all. Slide 15. Financing energy transition. The successful transition to a sustainable energy future is fundamentally contingent upon mobilizing capital at an unprecedented scale and pace. Despite notable growth in renewable energy investments, current global financial flows remain substantially below the annual requirement of approximately $4.5 trillion needed to meet SDG 7 and Paris Agreement objectives. This financing gap is most acute in developing economies, where perceived risks and higher capital costs deter private investment, particularly for critical transmission infrastructure and last-mile energy access projects. Strategic deployment of public finance is essential to catalyze private capital. Multilateral development banks, development finance institutions, and national governments must employ innovative de-risking instruments, such as guarantees, first loss capital, and blended finance structures, to improve project bankability and attract commercial investors. Funding must be prioritized not only for renewable generation assets but also for enabling infrastructure, including grid modernization, energy storage, and smart technologies, which are crucial for system integration and reliability. Furthermore, financing models must be tailored to address distinct segments. Large-scale utility projects require project finance mechanisms, while distributed renewable solutions for underserved communities need patient capital and pay-as-you-go structures. Closing the financing gap demands enhanced international cooperation, policy certainty to reassure investors, and the development of robust pipelines of bankable projects. Without a concerted effort to align global financial flows with climate and energy access goals, the transition will remain dangerously off track, jeopardizing both developmental and climate objectives. Slide 16. Innovative financing models. The acceleration of the global energy transition is increasingly propelled by a diverse array of innovative financing models designed to overcome traditional investment barriers and unlock capital at scale. These mechanisms are essential for bridging the substantial funding gap, particularly in emerging markets and for distributed energy solutions. Green bonds have emerged as a powerful tool for raising dedicated capital for climate-aligned projects. India's successful issuance of $3.5 billion in sovereign green bonds has directly funded 5.8 gigawatts of renewable capacity, demonstrating the model's potential for national-level deployment. Results-based financing, RBF, creates powerful incentives for efficiency and impact by linking disbursements to verified outcomes, as exemplified by the NDAVE program, which connected 22 million people across 25 countries. For last-mile energy access, pay-as-you-go (PAYG) systems have revolutionized affordability by leveraging mobile money platforms to break down upfront costs into manageable micropayments. Companies like M. Cooper have scaled this model to reach 750,000 homes across East Africa. Blended finance structures strategically deploy public or philanthropic capital to the risk investments and attract private sector participation at scale. The climate investment funds have mobilized $8.5 billion for clean energy through such approaches. Additionally, community ownership models, exemplified by Denmark's 150-plus community-owned wind farms, foster local acceptance, distribute economic benefits, and enhance project sustainability through participatory development. These innovative mechanisms collectively address critical challenges of risk perception, affordability, and scalability, proving indispensable for directing capital toward underserved sectors and geographies while ensuring that financial solutions align with both developmental and environmental objectives. Slide 17. Future Trends Reshaping Energy. The global energy sector is poised for a transformative shift, driven by technological innovations that promise to enhance efficiency, accessibility, and sustainability. Digitalization and artificial intelligence are at the forefront, with smart grids and AI-optimized systems projected to improve operational efficiency by 15 to 30%. Investments in digital electricity infrastructure are expected to reach $500 billion by 2030, enabling real-time management of increasingly decentralized and complex energy networks. Concurrently, the storage revolution is overcoming the intermittency challenges of renewables. With battery costs having plummeted 89% since 2010 and anticipated to drop another 50% by 2030, grid-scale storage deployment is set to increase 122-fold by 2040. This will facilitate higher renewable penetration and empower resilient microgrids for remote communities. Complementing this is the rise of distributed generation, which is redefining consumer roles. By 2030, over 100 million households are expected to become prosumers, generating electricity through rooftop solar and participating in vehicle-to-grid technologies, thereby democratizing energy production and consumption. Perhaps the most promising frontier is green hydrogen, with production costs projected to fall 50% by 2030. This will enable deep decarbonization of hard-to-abate sectors like industry and heavy transport. The hydrogen economy could grow to $2.5 trillion by 2050, supporting 30 million jobs globally. These trends collectively signal a paradigm shift toward a more resilient, decentralized, and intelligent energy system, fundamentally altering how energy is produced, distributed, and consumed. Slide 18. Pathways Forward. Key recommendations. Achieving SDG 7 requires coordinated, multi-stakeholder action tailored to diverse national contexts while fostering global solidarity. For India, priorities include accelerating distribution company, DISCOM, reforms to ensure financial sustainability, developing dedicated policies for decentralized renewable solutions in remote communities, scaling innovative financing to overcome clean cooking affordability barriers, and investing in domestic manufacturing of renewable technologies to enhance energy security and reduce import dependence. The global community must substantially increase climate finance flows to developing nations, enhance mechanisms for technology transfer, coordinate the phase-out of inefficient fossil fuel subsidies while protecting vulnerable populations, and strengthen regional power pools to optimize resource sharing and grid stability. These actions are essential to bridge the investment and capacity gaps that hinder progress in emerging economies. All stakeholders should adopt integrated planning approaches that explicitly link energy access with other development priorities such as healthcare, education, and economic productivity. Investing in workforce development is critical to building the skills required for the clean energy transition, while meaningful community engagement ensures that energy solutions are locally appropriate, inclusive, and equitable. These recommendations collectively form a comprehensive framework for transforming energy systems, one that balances urgency with equity and innovation with implementation, to ensure no one is left behind in the transition to a sustainable energy future. This brings end to our presentation. As we move forward, we shall begin exploring Sustainable Development Goals 8, Decent Work and Economic Growth. We encourage you to stay connected with our channel for the upcoming session, and to share this content with fellow professionals who share their passion for sustainable development with our channel. Until then, I wish you all about their professional journey filled with excitement, challenges and sustainable prosperity. Lastly, wish you happy and prosperous Diwali.